All right. Welcome to the second ever Twisted Takes podcast. We survived the week. Physically, we are here. Mentally and emotionally, I'm here. I'm not sure about you, Peyton.
I'm
Um,
also here. I'm here.
all right. So Peyton's here, loud and proud, very happy. How are you, Michael?
I'm in purgatory right now.
Okay. And Dante, how you doing?
Yeah, we'll get to that whenever we discuss the game. But honestly, I think I kind of came to terms with it at halftime, so not as bad as I thought I'd be.
Was it at halftime or maybe like 5 minutes left in the second quarter? Or
No, it was actually past that after I was done arguing with that nonsense PI call, and then I came back down to earth, and I was like, this game's over.
all right. So speaking of football, we'll always start with the National Football League. One thing I wanted to bring up first of all, I'm always like a recency thing. I don't like saying it was the worst in history. I'm going to say worst in recent history. This was one of the worst wild card rounds, I would say, since the new 6 game wild card weekend.
But in
And
terms
I
of,
have, in terms of how competitive the games were.
I personally like the high scoring games.
But
Well, high
okay, I like
scoring is
high
one thing.
scoring. So here's my stat. The win margin in these games this year was 17.3, and there was one score game, the Lions Rams. In 2023,
Which of course we
the
had -3 on the one blowout win that
yes,
wasn't
of
there, of
course.
course.
In 2023, the win margin was 8.8, with 4 out of the 6 games being one score. 2022, it was also at 17.2, two one-score games, and then the first year of the 16 or the 6 game wild card, it was 8.5 win margin. So it's weird how it flip-flops almost every year. Um, but I
So now
it
you
just
look for more competitive games.
yeah, there was just no other than Rams Lions. There was no second half that I was into the game. Like really, I mean, I always thought the Eagles could come back in that game last night, but every other game it was just like you kind of knew it. You knew it at halftime.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I think these games were insanely lopsided. I mean, like, how many of these games did we even go into the second half thinking, oh wow, this could come down to the final possession. I mean,
Mhm.
Rams
Yeah, I mean,
Lions.
Probably,
That
probably
was it.
only probably only Lions Rams, and at that time I think I was a few happy dads deep trying to drown my sorrows. So
yeah, obviously
In,
the
in,
Lions
the- in the
Rams.
Dolphins game, I would say like at halftime, it was only it was like a 10-point game at half. So it wasn't out of reach, but it still seemed like they were getting dominated and it just felt over, even though it
Mhm.
was
Right.
not as steep of a climb, it still felt over.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say I'm kind of going to argue the same thing with the Eagles. Because yes, they have been sucking, and I still believe that they sucked in that game. But I was never like, oh, they're completely out of it until that safety. Like I thought, oh, they could score three and out, score. And then same thing with the Steelers, but that one's weird because I'll get to it later on. Bills won. Bills won. That's all that matters. All right, so let's go in chronological order. So we'll start with the first game: Texans 45, Browns 14.
Before we do
yeah,
that,
Hmm.
I wanted to present a question to the three of you
Okay.
because I have my take, but I want to see what your guys' takes are. Most disappointing loss. Not worst loss, most disappointing loss. I want to hear your takes. The most disappointing loss, and then I'll share mine.
I mean, I think Dante and I will probably agree here, with just how dominant they were all season at home. They were undefeated. I think the Cowboys getting absolutely demolished. It was not a 16-point game. The final score in the box score is a little bit misleading, in my opinion. But I feel like the Cowboys have to be the most disappointed with how their season ended. Losing to the 7 seed for the first time in NFL playoff history too is pretty sad.
yeah, I'm gonna agree with Peyton, completely putting my bias aside and only looking at the facts. Box score watchers in about a decade are gonna think this was kind of a decent game. It was not. A lot more that I'm gonna get to on where coaching failed, et cetera, once we actually get to that game on the list. But I fully understand that there were high expectations for the Browns. I don't care. The Cowboys' loss is probably, maybe even in franchise history, the most disappointing loss.
I think it's far and away the Cowboys. Like you could argue that maybe the Eagles, if the Eagles are playing their best and the Cowboys are playing their best, the Eagles should beat the Bucks more than the Cowboys should beat the Packers. But you all kind of like we felt that the Eagles could still
Mhm.
lose this game on the
You know,
road.
we may have felt that, but I think if I recall correctly, I am the only one who bet that on the podcast last week.
Well, we all said if AJ Brown or Jalen Hurts wasn't playing, this was before we knew that we were going to be on the Bucks. And then
That's true.
that was before we knew. That was before we knew. So
And then I still put money on the Eagles. But I like you still could picture Tampa Bay walking away with that win more than I could see Green Bay just steamrolling. It really was just a steamroll of the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
Wholeheartedly
And
agree.
I also notably said that this does look like a trap game before I eventually took the Eagles, but I did also say no AJ Brown. I did like the Bucks without AJ Brown. Obviously that was before that was noted, but okay, so we're all in agreement then. I was just I saw some debates online about it, so I wanted to see what you guys thought. Just because some people are saying it's the Eagles, you know,
Well, the
I
Eagles, in
think
terms of their overall like season meltdown, that I
you,
mean, yeah, I agree. But like you kind again, they were 1-5 in their last six coming into the game.
that's the
It,
thing.
it, to me, it almost felt like destiny that like I think I saw there were three teams ever to go into the playoffs with 1-5 in their last six or worse, and all three of them lost. And I think it was just kind of to be
Mhm.
expected.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Okay,
think
well,
it's
with
I
that said, Ryan, I'll let you
quickly, I
transition.
think it's very easy to rank them like from 1 to 6. Like I would go Cowboys, Eagles, Dolphins. Yes, they were hurt, but you would hope that you got to the divisional round. Then I would say maybe close between the Rams and the Browns. Rams weren't expecting to get there at the start of the year. Cleveland wasn't expecting to get here with all their injuries, and then the Steelers walked in and we're just happy to play.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's a clear top three, and then there's a clear bottom three.
Mhm.
Um, Dolphins, just given the weather and the injuries and the fact that they lost the division on the last game of the year,
Yeah.
going on the road, I think there was more of an expectation to lose than the other two. It was disappointing for sure, but I think that those two definitely probably topped it. So we can get into it though, Ryan.
Yeah. All right. All right. So first one, Texans 45, Browns 14. The first question I have is what do they do with Deshaun Watson now?
You got to
Like
get him healthy.
I think so too. People are saying to keep Flacco as a backup, maybe because they need a backup. They do not have a backup on this team. Um,
Well, I mean DTR, but my thing. Like I said on the previous podcast, the O line had been great all year. If the O line can hold up, I think they'll win. If they don't, I don't think Flacco's mobile enough. And I think in the second half we saw a lot of Joe Flacco not being able to make magic happen because he's just older and he just can't move as well as he used to. I mean, it looked like he was standing in cement a couple of times. It wasn't good. And I think that was a huge reason why he ended up throwing those two big interceptions when the game wasn't completely lost but almost lost, and
Mhm.
that just put it away.
that's
So
what's
I
tough about these absolute steamrolls. What else? CJ Stroud played phenomenal. Didn't
Yeah.
even really have to play that phenomenal. He had 14
yeah,
points given to him.
13 yards per attempt is pretty crazy in a playoff
Yeah.
game, especially against the number one defense in terms of EPA this year. So it's pretty
Um,
crazy.
and
I,
they
I
were
don't
they were
know if
made
Deshaun Watson's the guy. I think Joe Flacco. The fact that Joe Flacco really took them to the playoffs when Deshaun Watson, I know he was a little bit banged up. I don't think it's time to give up on him, but at what point, at what point does his injuries and his nagging injuries and, um, start to kind of weigh on him? And then you have to make that hard decision. Is this the guy? I know we're paying him a ton of money, but is it time to part ways with this guy? I didn't think he looked good at all this year. Again, I know he was dealing with those injuries, but me personally, I don't think he's the guy moving forward. But I also don't think it's time to give up on him quite yet just because of the injury thing.
So do you maybe draft a guy like JJ McCarthy behind him and let him develop a year or two?
Yeah, it
Well,
worked with the Packers, right? Maybe a quarterback who's not one of those
Not
top,
ready to start.
right, one of those top 3 or 4 guys that's up there. But yeah, maybe a guy like McCarthy or, I mean, if I don't see Drake May falling that far, I think too many teams need quarterbacks. But
Yeah,
Or I
there's
think
no way.
maybe they can go with a guy that like I don't think has had much injury history, has proven now that he could win 2 playoff games, maybe a third this upcoming week. I like maybe a guy like Baker Mayfield. Like that might be a
not
good fit for
imagine.
them. Like
Yeah,
I
you
could
think
picture him
so?
in a I could picture him going into the Cleveland and winning them a playoff game.
I agree, but no team would be smart enough to like let him go at this point, right?
And why would you go back to the Browns, the team that ruined your career when you first got drafted?
Oh yeah,
I believe that was the joke.
that was complete sarcasm.
Okay, I was just making sure.
All right.
Um,
I kind of want to talk more about CJ when we get to previewing Texans Ravens.
Yeah, let's
Because I
move
mean
on.
this game was kind of a wash.
yeah.
Um, all right, next up, the Saturday night game was Chiefs 26, Dolphins 7.
Fuck
So
Peacock, by the way. Fuck Peacock.
yeah, that was
Yeah, I
um,
agree.
What
but
a
I
what
think
a fucking money grab that is, by the way.
I want to see how much they make because also I think it's so much more beneficial for restaurants. Like I have to think like we all went out because yes, we were all down here, but I would have rather gone to any restaurant in the world than have to deal with getting a free trial, finding a new email to sign up for Peacock. So if anything, the restaurants are benefiting more than the NBC overlords.
Yeah, well, it would have been nice if the place we were at had the sound synced with all of the TVs, but
Right.
Which wouldn't be a problem if it was on TV. Right.
exactly because they had to stream it on all the different TVs. So, that's the issue with streaming at a restaurant, particularly when, South Florida, everyone's watched the Dolphins game on. There were no other TVs on anything else.
And the fact that there was maybe 15 TVs that were showing the game and somehow not a single one of them was on the same wavelength as the sound was
Right.
incredible.
Right.
All right, so you go, Peyton.
I just want to touch on it again. Tua sucks. The Dolphins, I mean, yeah, the injuries, it hurts, but watching him throw bubble screen after bubble screen after bubble screen, sure, you can use the weather as an excuse, whatever. I know he's from Hawaii. He plays football in South Florida. But Patrick Mahomes was playing on the same field in the same weather, throwing the same football.
Okay, but you also have to consider the fact that that might not have been his like to me, I feel like if anything, the whole bubble screen thing, like I mean, it was incredible how many bubble screens they ran. It was crazy to me. I don't know if it was a combination of Waddle being banged up, and I know Hill was dealing with some injuries down the stretch and the weather, but like part of me felt like that was also a play calling strategy from
Sure.
McDaniel. And maybe it wasn't necessarily to his decision to just dump it off every single play. I mean, he has to go through his progressions and I mean, I get the weather sucks too, and I don't think it's an excuse at all, but I think that there is more to the story than just, oh, they're throwing bubble screens because they don't trust Tua to throw the ball down the field. I mean, I feel like games 1 through 17 were examples that
Yeah.
would say otherwise, But I do agree. I mean, it was not his best game, and I definitely think that watching that game, it kind of made me think like, is he a playoff caliber quarterback? Maybe one day, but I mean, right now his playmakers are going to win him maybe a couple games. But obviously, I don't think it's time to give up hope or anything like that. I mean, that would be insane. But
I mean, I think we saw on deep balls from both quarterbacks all game. I mean, you see the flight path of the ball; it just looked like it hit a wall in midair, just because the way the wind was. I mean, what happened to Mahomes a couple times? The weather was brutal, and I think one coach was better prepared for it than another, and one team was better prepared for it than another. Pacheco had more rushing yards than the Dolphins guys did. A-Chain had 9 yards on 6 carries. I really rough game for him. Chiefs D line was really good, but I don't think they were prepared to run the ball down Chiefs' throats that game, and I think they needed to because that running game was underrated all year with the way that they performed. I know A-Chain got a lot of props because of his fantasy stats, but when you think of the Dolphins, you think of Tua to Tyreek and Tua to Waddle. You don't
Mhm.
think of Mostert and A-Chain running the ball up and down the field, and they needed to do that.
But I think what's tough for their running back room is like I'm not saying that Moser and A Chain are bad, but I think they strive when the field is stretched. Those are not guys that are going to run through the O
Right.
line and defensive line like Pacheco can. Pacheco runs angry. He's a Rutgers guy, and so
Yeah,
he
he's
just
Yeah,
like
if you go to Rutgers, you're angry.
yeah. So like I think the Dolphins just they have to have home field advantage. They have to have the weather their way where Tua can throw the ball 40, 50 yards to Tua or Waddle, or to Hill or Waddle, where the defense pulls back and gets scared. That gives the room for Achane or Moser to use their speed. They're a speed over strength. They're not going to win these cold games.
It's a phenomenal
I
point.
agree.
That's a phenomenal point. I mean, because when you have to respect Tyreek Hill and Waddle, like you're forced to not stack
To
the
open up.
box. I
Right.
agree. I
Yeah.
100% agree.
And in the
Yeah,
cold, it's a lot harder to get your fast little skill players' legs going because it's so damn cold outside.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Look at the
no,
Packers.
for sure. Yeah, for sure. But I think they gave up on the run. Between A-Chain and Mostert, they only had combined 14 carries. Pacheco
Yeah.
had 24, and I know they were playing with a lead, but it felt like they just gave up on the run too early. I wanted to go to the pass in conditions that didn't allow it,
I
and
just think it was a
I
horribly
think that was
coached game.
coaching. Sorry.
So I know I've already asked this question to you, Michael, and I know your answer, but you have the option this offseason. The Chargers are rebuilding, and you could get Herbert. Would you take him or would you stick with Tua?
I'm sticking with Tua. I just
You're
wouldn't.
insane. You're
I
insane.
wouldn't switch up to Herbert. I mean, if you're saying in a 1-for-1 deal, I mean, I just don't think like Herbert's necessarily done anything that would make me think, wow, this guy is leaps and bounds better than Tua, or even a little bit. I mean, okay, he won Rookie of the Year, but I mean, other than that, like what scenario has he presented better than Tua in a, you know what I mean? I mean, how many playoff games has he won, you know?
Really blew that lead against
The eye
Jacksonville.
test. The
Yeah,
eye.
I'm gonna say Herbert.
I agree.
I think if you gave Herbert Tyreek, and I know, oh, hypothetical man, all the memes on Twitter, and I think they're hilarious, but I think there's a reason why there's so many hypotheticals surrounding him. A lot of injuries. Let's face, Brandon Staley might be the worst coach in the NFL, or was probably the worst coach in the NFL. He's bad. He's really bad. The play calling never seems to be good. They don't seem to use anyone to their strengths. And it'll be interesting to see what Herbert does with the new coach. With that being said, yes, Peyton's right. The eye test tells me Herbert over Tua. I don't think as big of a difference as a certain Tua hater in here might make it sound, but I do think I would take Herbert over Tua and not really think twice about it.
As a Bills fan, I'd be scarier of Herbert walking into Bill Stadium, into Jet Stadium, into Patriot Stadium than Tua and any day of the week with that same team.
Yeah.
Also, he throws with his right hand, so that helps.
That is a big.
Yeah,
That is a big
that's a weird windup. Before we move on to the next game, I do want to ask a question about L'Jarius Sneed. Is he the most underrated defensive player in the league? Because I think he's awesome and got absolutely snubbed of first team All Pro.
I think he's up there. I think that he is the reason why the Chiefs defense has been very good this year. I mean,
I can't think of another corner I'd rather have on my team, to be completely honest.
I'd have
Maybe Sauce,
have
and maybe Surtain, and maybe the guy with the glasses that people think is a fan.
Zach.
he's back, baby. All right. Speaking of the pack being back, Packers 48, Cowboys 32.
I got
All
a
right.
question for this one.
Okay, Peyton, go ahead.
Is Jordan Love the current number 2 quarterback from the 2020 draft class
Yes.
behind Joe Burrow?
Well,
Absolutely
right now-
not. He's like the number
Yeah.
4. What?
You're crazy. He's better than Tua Herbert for sure.
I just don't. I would, if we're having the same hypothetical, I would take Herbert over Love. So no.
I mean,
You
maybe.
can't
I would
Like,
also take Tua over Love in any
then
single.
now you're
No, now
In any
then now
single.
you're
you're
Yeah,
What
no.
are we even talking about here?
Did you
Like
not
that's
watch them dice up the Cowboys on Sunday? You were sitting on the couch right beside me. I know you saw the same game.
I mean, with the youngest position group in the league, I mean,
Perfect passer rating in his first
talking about
playoff game.
we're talking
we're
about
we're
Romeo
talking.
Doubs and Jaden Reed here,
Dontavian
not
Wicks.
Tyreek June. Yeah,
Aiden
Dontavian
Reed
Wicks.
had 0 catches. Christian Watson had 1 catch.
Yeah, but we're
Every
talking
other
about a
player that
team
was
who practically went one game over 500 versus a team with 11 wins who found a way to win a playoff game
look at
against a
your all's
hurting Cowboys
division.
team.
I mean, you
Well,
got the Bills, and then the Patriots and Jets were absolutely ass this year. We had to still play the Bears twice that were decent, and the Vikings twice.
Okay.
all right. Let's
All
The
know
right.
where
Vikings
we're
All
won
right.
more games than the Jets and the Patriots combined.
For a guy that talked about how the Bears versus Packers was their Super Bowl in the last
It
week
is
of the
their Super
season,
Bowl.
it's really crazy to say that they were
It is
decent.
their Super Bowl, but they were better than both the Jets and the Patriots this year.
I
I
would
mean,
I
I
would
agree
take I
with
would
that,
take
but
them over both teams by the end of the year. Again,
Right.
if we're talking about timelines here, we're talking about Jordan Love, who was starting. This was basically his rookie year as a starting quarterback in the NFL. The first half, Jordan Love. The first half of Jordan Love, I wasn't taking him over. Maybe like I'd probably rank him 22nd if I just
Sure. Yeah.
spitballing. Second half, Jordan Love was second in passer rating to Dak since week 8. The was not throwing interceptions anymore. The interceptions
18 to
disappeared.
1 in his last 8 games, by the way.
Yeah, and that's what and with the skill position group that yes, he grew up with, but at the same you don't have a Tyreek Hill. You don't have a Mike McDaniel calling plays, although I'll give LaFleur his props. He was
You
really
also don't
good.
even have a Jalen Waddle.
No, not even a Waddle. And I love Reed. I'm a Jaden Reed truther. I told Peyton when they drafted him, that guy's a stud. He's a great player. But he is not nearly on the level of those two guys yet.
You don't have
And I
Keenan
think to be
Allen.
doing
You
this,
don't have a
yeah,
Mike Williams.
no.
well,
But
Herbert usually doesn't have a Mike
I'm
Williams.
still, yeah,
yeah, yeah. Herbert
Mike
never has
Williams.
a Mike Williams either.
Well, yeah, but sometimes has Mike Williams.
I just don't.
But
I think like it's one stretch, and yeah, like did he play better down the stretch than Tua? Absolutely, he did.
He
But
played
I
better
mean,
down
again,
the stretch than every quarterback in the NFL.
Other than
Besides,
Mason Rudolph.
we're talking about year by year. You're telling me if you redrafted right now, you're saying Dante and Ryan, because I don't want to hear Peyton's bias. You are actually going to take Jordan Love over Tua. Actual
I'd
question.
have to think about it for sure. It's not a cut and dry answer.
what did Tua do his first year?
I mean, he was okay. Like he wasn't
Okay.
bad. I
And
mean,
Jordan
I
Love
his
was
stats.
leaps and bounds better than that.
Okay, yeah, but he also had 3 years to develop. Tua's first year,
Whose
he was
fault is
coming off
that
an
your
injury.
organization is trash and hasn't won a playoff game since the iPhone was invented?
But that's not what we're talking about. We're
Yeah,
talking about
that's
a
a point.
completely
Because
different question. You
that
asked
plays
how did
into
Tua
how
do?
good you've become.
You asked
Well,
how did Tua do in his first year versus Jordan Love?
Yeah.
This technically isn't Jordan Love's first year because he's played minutes in other years, by the way.
Sure, he played one full game.
Okay, so
And he
Tua's
outplayed
first
Patrick
year,
Mahomes by QBR
Tua's
that
first
game.
year, he was hurt. And he played in his second year. Okay, and he did fine. Like anyone who said he didn't play well is crazy. He had
Did
a
you make
good
the
year, and
playoffs?
he did not have good weapons either.
Did you make the playoffs?
Jordan Love.
I think they had a
Love
better
had-
record than the Packers did. I don't think they made the playoffs, but I think they had a better record than the
And
Packers.
the Packers did it with the youngest roster in the NFL since 2017.
Okay, and the Dolphins did it with an old washed up team and Jalen Waddle.
I'm gonna let me speak. The Tua did not have the benefit of being essentially raised by Aaron Rodgers for 3 years, and so yeah, obviously, you're comparing his fourth year with 3 years of development from the second most talented quarterback ever versus Tua getting thrown into a terrible situation where a lot of people thought the Dolphins were going to finish last the year before that. And I don't think you could really compare the two at all.
In his first year, he went 6-3 in 9 games. His second year, he went 7-5 in 12 games. In his third year, he went 8-5 in 13 games.
He's won, but
Not when it
again,
matters.
yeah, but listen, I mean, he's still
And
he's
that was
still
without
young.
Tyreek, by the way. I mean, those are like not. again, they're
Oh,
not
you're
great.
acting like the Packers have some world beater on the outside.
I'm not saying that. No,
Tyreek Hill's the best receiver in the NFL right now.
but that's exactly what I'm saying. Is I'm saying that Tua had winning records in his first 3 seasons without a world beater on his team.
Okay, and the
Michael
oldest
versus
wide
Peyton
receiver
was
that
not.
Jordan Love threw to this year was like 23
Was
years.
this not on the agenda?
No,
All right, let's
Michael
move on,
versus Peyton was not on the agenda.
I
But
know
I
it's-
added
I know-
this. I added the question to my agenda.
I know we're on a time
But
crunch, so I want to move
I'm gonna
on.
talk. I'm gonna talk about the actual game. So the Cowboys all year were one of the best second down passing teams in the league. It's what they did. They ran the ball on first down. They threw the ball on second down. The first half, the Cowboys had 10 second downs. They ran the ball on 6 of the first 7 of them, and they threw the ball the last 3 times, all which were on that last drive that they scored. They averaged 6 yards per carry on first down. They averaged 2 yards per carry on second down. The play calling screwed them. If you let Dak cook on second down, the game probably is not as bad. Despite the fact that Dak had a terrible game, the part of the reason why is you didn't let him get into a rhythm. He's throwing the ball on third down every single time. You're having him hand the ball off and then asking him to come up with a big third down conversion on every drive, on every series. That's a terrible way to go about it. McCarthy was doing that the first 4 weeks. He stopped doing that. That's when the offense really exploded. Then all of a sudden we get back to that again. They're running zone coverage instead of man. It made no sense, no rhyme or reason to what the coaching staff did. Not to take away from the incredible performance that the Packers had, because to be honest, that was the best I've seen a team play maybe all year in any game in that first half. But it helps when the coaching staff is throwing curveballs all game at his own team. And that's just not the way you go about it. Peyton, anything to add to that?
I mean, I think it just helps the Packers defense that before the Vikings game, Joe Barry was going to be fired at the end of the year. And he has coached himself in, which I don't like. I think Joe Barry is garbage. But the last 3 games, the Vikings, the Bears, and then the Cowboys game, he has coached himself into another year of being the Packers defensive coordinator, unless somehow God blesses us and somebody wants to hire them to be a head coach. That would be absolutely amazing. Please let that happen. But
he could take Dan Quinn's jobs offers because he clearly outcoached him.
Sure. Yeah, but I mean, props to him. Obviously, the Packers offense has been pretty phenomenal as of late. I mean, scoring 17 on the Bears defense, who is statistically the best defense the last 8 weeks of the season, without Christian Watson, Jaden Reed being banged up, Wicks getting hurt in that game after a second touchdown catch. I mean, I kind of expected them to play good enough, but I didn't think the defense would hold up like it did.
Yeah. And Packers were awesome. Aaron Jones obviously owns them, 9 touchdowns in the 4 games. What happened with Micah Parsons? He had 1 pressure, and it was on a snap when he was basically unaccounted for because it was just meant to be a quick out.
Zach Tom was the highest graded offensive tackle from the first week of the playoffs. From a second year guy out of a 5th round draft pick. I mean, what a performance! What a performance!
Yeah, it's frustrating to see your top guys not perform, but as much as it is them not showing up for the moment, it's equally on the other team for keeping them in check and game planning for that. If I'm the 49ers, I'm worried, and we'll get to that when we game plan. I'm concerned. I don't know if you can really feel too confident as the Niners that you're going to cover that 10-point spread after watching the Packers.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think to that point, Micah Parsons did draw 2 holding calls, so I mean he wasn't necessarily invisible, but yeah, I mean he didn't step up like you expect your stars to in the playoffs,
Yeah.
All right, so Dante, you are Jerry Jones. Who are you getting rid of before the next year comes around?
So I'm hoping someone hires Quinn. Honestly, the defense was top 5 in talent. They should have been a top 5 defense. He did nothing with that team that made them more special than they are. I'm getting rid of Dan Quinn. I've had some time to sleep on McCarthy. I would probably let him go too. Not as adamant as I was after the game. I'm getting rid of McCarthy. The problem with Dak is if Belichick comes in, he's not going to want to start over with the rookie quarterback like in New England. He wants to break Don Shula's record. He's not going to wait on, the Cowboys to develop some guy. So I say Dak probably stays. I think you give him one more shot in the playoffs. If he chokes again, as much as I think some of the other games weren't his fault, they still didn't win, and a lot that still falls on the QB. I think he's got to be gone. Or sorry, I think he has to stay, but I think afterwards, I think he's got to be gone if he can't deliver in the next couple of years. So that's what I'm going with. They're still a great team. I think a lot of it's in their head. So
All right. Anything else from the two fans?
I'm just happy. I did not expect it. So
and I'm just disappointed. I also did not expect it.
All right, let's move on to the next game. Lions 24, Rams 23, the closest game of the weekend. I think the greatest question to ask from this game is who truly won the trade at this point? Oh, and Payne's eager.
um the Rams, I don't even really think it's a question. They won a daggone Super Bowl ring. Same thing people talk about with the Anthony Davis trade with the Pelicans. It gave them Zion Williamson and Jackson Hayes, who's now on the Lakers anyways. But the Lakers won a ring. People can say what they want about that ring, but a ring trumps everything in a trade, in my opinion. That's what everybody's playing for every year. So that trade was ultimately a success for the Rams.
Yeah, I give the edge to the Rams. I was very much on your stance until Ryan showed me the trade tree. They got
Yeah.
Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta out
And
of
they
that
still have
trade.
more picks. Don't they have, aren't they given
Uh,
more or are they done?
they might have traded down maybe and gathered a couple more like later round picks. They don't have any more first round picks, but they got a lot of talent out of that trade, and I think at some point it means a lot to the city of Detroit that they even won a playoff game. So in relative terms, that's basically their Super Bowl. um, Obviously, I'm going to give a slight edge to the Rams because they did win a Super Bowl, and that is obviously at the end of the day what you're playing for. Um, don't count the Lions out. If the Lions get a Super Bowl out of it somehow, even
Then
this
they
year, because they have to play the Bucks in the second round, I'd give the edge to them. They got so much
agree.
out of that trade.
Okay. Here's everything that the Lions got. So I agree right now it is the Rams, but it depends on how long the Lions have this success because I don't think it's wild to say they could win a Super Bowl maybe in the next 4, 5 years. They have a really good team that they are building. They got Jared Goff. I'm probably going to butcher these names. They got cornerback Afitu Melifonwu in the third round, Jameson Williams in the first, Josh Pascal in the second round, Jahmyr Gibbs in the first, Samuel Porter in the second, and Broderick Martin in the third.
So Jameson Williams, though, they traded up with the Vikings to get that. So I don't know if that was solely from the Rams pick, but I remember them trading up with the Vikings to get Jameson Williams.
So here's
If I if
the
I if I
clarification.
remember, oh, go
I can
ahead.
give you. So yes. So they acquired the 12th and the 46th pick, which the 12th was Williams, the 46th was Pascal, in exchange for number 32, 34, and 66 in
Okay.
that draft. So
So
I mean
they
they
kind
Interesting.
of got
they
Jameson
lost
Williams.
their 66th pick basically.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Who did they trade up for Jahmyr Gibbs too? I
they
thought
traded back in
back.
2023. The
Okay.
Lions moved back from number 6 and took Gibbs at 12. Oh, so they actually didn't have the 34 before for Laporta. When they traded back for Gibbs, that's when they got Laporta and also the 168 trade for Martin. So really they just kept getting picks from this trade.
Yeah, that's what happens with these big trees is they keep growing at a certain point.
Right.
Um so yes, right now Rams are winning it obviously because they have the Super Bowl. If the Lions ever get a Super Bowl, then I think it's automatically the Lions win because I think they will have a longer sustained success.
Yeah.
Because with that, they have young players. We see Puka, best rookie wide receiver currently right now. Um, they have Kyron Williams, one of a stellar deep late running back that will be good for them. Although I don't know how Sean McVay likes to use his running backs. Um, but I still feel that the window is closing because their
Yeah.
defense is getting towards the end of their stellar life cycle.
I think this loss closes their window. I think their window is completely closed, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, Matt Stafford too. I mean, he's getting older, and you saw how
Dude, he's banged up.
weak they were. I mean, they got some young weapons. I mean, Cup, Nakua, and Williams. I think they could
But Cubs
salvage
not even
that.
young either.
No, he's not young, but he's not like out of his prime or anything. I think they could salvage that and turn it into something, but I think as it stands right now, yeah, I mean, as far as this squad with Stafford and Donald at the core, I mean, they're not done by any means, but I think that it feels
Yeah.
over. It feels over.
Yeah, I'm
I
just
mean,
not
maybe
sure
they
if they
can
could win a Super
maybe they can
Bowl
trade
with
Stafford for a few picks because they got Stetson Bennett warming up in the back, right?
They got Stetson
a
warming
few.
up at AA is where they
Yeah.
got.
I would say if he's done with AA, then maybe he'll be there.
He's intriguing.
Yeah, start a new tree, new Matt Stafford tree. But while we're on the subject of Puka, I know Michael and I had a discussion on Sunday about this. I wanted to bring this into the podcast. Who 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 do you guys think should be offensive rookie of the year? Puka or CJ Stroud?
CJ Stroud.
Sam Laporta. No, I'm just sorry. I just saw
What
you.
a
I saw you
lying
got.
answer that
Didn't
is.
I
touch
saw you
on
got
the tight
nominated.
end
I was like,
area.
oh, that's funny. Yes, it should be C.J. Stroud because Mac Jones went over Jamar Chase. I wish that didn't happen because then I think you could argue Puka, but how these awards work, half of them are QB awards.
Mhm. I mean, who's
Um,
more valuable to their team?
Yeah,
Then that's I say sure, but it's not a most valuable player. It's rookie of the year. It's
But it kind of is like the offensive rookie MVP. That's pretty much what the award is.
that's
It
fair.
might
But
as
I
well
know
that's just so. That's what's so annoying about these awards is because like it's rookie of the year. Who is the most impressive rookie? They both blew their
Oh yeah.
positions out of the water.
Oh yeah. Not even close.
It might as
Yeah,
well
well,
be
I'd like to.
MVQ. It might as well be MVQ at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say I'd like to hear Michael's case on it because I know he said Puka. Obviously we had a discussion about it, but why do you think it should be Puka over Stroud?
I mean, I just think he's setting records. I mean, I think that, I mean, especially, I know Cooper Kupp hasn't played the entire year, but it's not like Jamar where, well, I mean, I guess he had T. Higgins there. Well, did he have him in there his rookie year? I don't remember.
Yes.
I think,
T. Higgins has always
Yes.
been.
yeah, he's been there, right? Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like with Cup and I don't know. I just feel like the records that he's setting are unprecedented. I don't think I'd be baffled or outraged with either one. I just think that I don't know. Maybe I'm just tired of seeing quarterbacks win just because of their position, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, once
Do
again,
we
I feel
ever
like
see the day that an offensive lineman wins? Has that ever happened? Ever?
well, didn't wasn't oh there was the Chiefs guy. He's still I can't believe I forget his name.
Fisher?
I mean he what did you say?
Humphrey?
Yes,
Like
Humphrey.
Creed
Because
Humphrey.
wasn't he
Oh,
was
Freed.
nominated, I thought. Because I
Yeah,
mean,
because he's a center too. So
yeah.
Yeah, that was
Um,
weird, but
I mean that's probably the closest you'll ever get.
All right, let's
And
move on to the
yes. Next game, we got I gotta get my notes. What's the next game? Oh,
Bills.
how could I forget? It is the Bills 31, Steelers 17. Before I get to talk about the Bills, now I had this question, but it kind of got answered. Um, I don't think they should, but it sounds like they are staying with Mike Tomlin. Um, I don't think Mike Tomlin's a bad coach. It's it's just you're gonna go 500 again.
yeah.
as long as
No,
I think
no, they'll go
they're
one above
basically-
500 again.
Oh, okay, yeah, now they're gonna go 9-8. Um, but I just think you have a young team, get a young coach. I think I like that.
You got to move on from Pickett. He's trash.
No,
Yeah,
He's
He
been
doesn't
in the
I
league
fit
don't
for
their
think he
2
was
scheme.
years.
trash.
it's not
He
Pickett's.
doesn't fit their scheme at all. He's just so different from the way Big Ben played, and it seems like Tomlin still wants to keep that same offense. And
Pickett's just not good. That QB draft class will go down as one of the worst quarterback draft classes ever. If not
absolutely.
the worst ever. I mean,
but is Baker bad? I mean, like, who's to say that he's just not a good fit in Pittsburgh? I mean, I think it's unfair to call a second-year quarterback who's had some injury struggles bad. I mean,
He's been bad. He's been bad.
Yeah, he hasn't been great. I get that, but I mean, I think that they'd be silly to move on from like I think in terms of draft capital, I think it'd be crazy for them to move on like without giving him
Sure.
the time to develop at least for another year or two. I mean, it's not like they're having the worst years of all time. I know he wasn't really having the greatest year of all time, and for some reason Mason Rudolph led him to the playoffs. I mean, maybe that's saying something. I don't know, but
Yeah, I'll say this: the man bleeds Pittsburgh. You know,
He does.
I think the city, him being from Pittsburgh, playing for Pittsburgh, I think it means something. But it also means something that Tommy DeVito had more multiple touchdown pass games than Kenny Pickett in his whole
Mhm.
career this year. I mean, those cutlets were cooking, but if you don't have more multi-touchdown games than Tommy DeVito, I think it might be might be time to start going back to school, maybe rethink your career.
do we
But
even need to talk about how good the Bills were, Ryan? I mean,
They
I just
good.
want
The Steelers made it close.
but okay, so I know someone's going to bring that up. We're zoom back in. It's 21-0 Bills. They're driving the field. If that field goal is not blocked, you go into half 24-0.
Yep.
Instead, they entered half 21-7. So I think if you end that half 24-0, it doesn't look like a game anymore.
which is a Bills moment, by the way. I mean, I feel like that's going to be how they lose in the playoffs is some
They're gonna
dumb
find a
shit
way to
like
lose.
that.
Yeah, Sam
It
Sam
always
Martin's
is.
going to cramp up again.
They're not going to beat the Bills. Aren't going to be beat. The Bills are going to lose.
that's
Yeah.
the way it's always been with them. 13 seconds, Music City Miracle, wide right. I mean, three of the most iconic playoff losses ever have all come at the hands of the Bills. And
I think the
I,
most
I don't.
iconic loss ever though is Dak not catching it.
Do you mean
Well,
Dez?
Dak's
Oh,
not
Oh
a
yeah. Dak
receiver,
wasn't even
so
on the team, and he doesn't
Dez,
even play receiver. What did they try a Philly special that I missed or something?
Dez didn't catch it. Dez didn't catch it.
That is certainly up there. That's a timeless classic as well.
And Jared.
Bills looking
Um,
dangerous.
I
I would be
I have a
scared.
great stat to bring up when we talk about Chief Bills briefly, so I'm going to save it there. But I am very like every year you ride with your team. Last year I knew walking in, even when it was at our field, Bengals were going to beat us. And what's amazing is this team sucked. We are on a 6-game win streak. We are like it's been. I mean, yes, the Dolphins game almost caught us on our heels, and that was the one game that uh he had 2 red zone interceptions. If he doesn't throw those picks, I don't see how this team gets beat up. And I mean, I've listened to almost every news, ESPN. I mean, I've watched every YouTube video on the Bills offense, and almost all these media guys are like, "Oh, the Bills defense is banged up." We're gonna get healthier for the Chiefs game. Like all of our guys that got hurt in this game, 2 of them were out for a concussion, which hopefully they come back. And I think Terrell Bernard, it was just an ankle injury that they already said the were negative. We should get Jordan Phillips. I mean, and then we should also have.
We can talk about this once we get to the preview.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll get
All right,
there. Because I want to talk about the Eagles losing because
and the last game to cap us off, Bucks 32, Eagles 9, and that kisses goodbye Sirianni's job
and Jason
Yep.
Kelsey.
and Jason Kelsey.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Much respect to Jason Kelsey. I mean, what a
Oh
career
my
that
God.
Quick
what
question.
a career that man had.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's just a bunch of internet trolls. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just a bunch of internet trolls, or maybe it's all the T Swift haters or whatever. But I saw the ESPN post that said next stop Canton. There was a lot of people saying that he does not deserve to go into the Hall of Fame and that he's overrated. And
That's blasphemous.
if he wasn't
Yeah, that's
likable,
pretty
he wouldn't be there.
It's
So
We're talking
longevity.
about a top 3 center ever,
Yeah,
probably.
it's longevity and consistency.
right.
I
Well, so I want to read this off because I think that it's relevant. Um, but I mean, first of all, before the whole like Super Bowl run, he was notable, but like people weren't like, oh, like Jason Kelsey, like look at this guy. Like he wasn't really in the spotlight before the whole dog mask thing.
But if you really know offensive linemen's names, it's usually not for a good reason.
Mhm.
Because it's like, oh, he's constantly getting burnt, he's getting flagged, people are blowing right by him. So I feel like if you're knowing an offensive lineman's name, it's not always good.
Particularly interior offensive linemen.
Right.
The tackles a lot of times, like yeah, everyone knows Trent Williams,
Right.
everyone knows Armstead, those guys. Everyone knows Tyron Smith. When you have a center and everyone knows your name, it's probably because you screw up a lot, and
Mhm.
that's the only reason why your name gets called. Um, I always knew Jason Kelsey was. I always knew he was a great center. He anchored that offensive line for years. I think he deserves to be a Hall of Famer.
So
I
okay, so six-time first team All Pro. I mean, name one person that's ever had even like four of those that didn't make the Hall of Fame.
Mhm.
I mean, okay, firstly. Second of all, um, seven-time Pro Bowler, seven-time Pro Bowler, and obviously one-time Super Bowl champ. I mean, to me, like anyone who reads that, like, is just hating on offensive linemen, which is arguably, may not arguably the most important position, but arguably the second most important position in the entire sport.
And I think it's always a conversation where it's like you have to like to be in the Hall of Fame, you have to somehow be a part. Like obviously every player is a part of NFL history, but like have a defining piece of it. I mean, we're going to talk about the tush push for a few years now until the rule gets changed.
Oh yeah,
He has
absolutely.
changed the game in a small way, but he has had a major impact on the way the game is played.
Yeah, and let's get it straight. That play works not because of Jalen Hurts. That play works because of Kelsey and
Mm,
then the other interior
Mhm.
offensive linemen. That's
yeah.
why the Eagles do it better than anyone else except for Josh Allen, who likes to get picked up and carried around like a little fairy while he does it. So
Well, okay,
he doesn't do
so
it like a man like Hurts does.
James Cook
Tampa
gets
did
down and
stop it
dirty.
though. Tampa did stop it on that 2-point conversion, and I felt like that was a big momentum shift in the game.
Yes,
Mm.
but it's notable when someone stops the Eagles.
No, I agree. I agree. I'm just saying, they stopped it. And I think that
Oh,
the Bucks looked phenomenal.
oh, they look great.
Mm.
They look great. I wasn't expecting them to beat them that bad. Not because the Eagles haven't stunk, but because I didn't really think the Bucks. They beat Carolina 9-0 and didn't score a single touchdown at the end of this game in pretty good weather conditions. Like they weren't impressive either.
They're very
And
bipolar, though. They went into Lambeau and manhandled the Packers.
yeah, I think that team goes as Baker goes.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
a lot of teams, it's the case with the QB, but there's a lot of teams that can overcome bad QB play. They either look great because Baker looks great, or they look trash because Baker looks trash, and there's no in between at all. I haven't seen an in between. I don't think there is one.
But also like the tackling was just horrible in this game. Like usually like you see like oh they got a lead because Baker threw a 50, 60-yard pass to Mike Evans. But like we had two 50-yard touchdowns and or I don't know if they were both 50 yards of just guys that were not getting tackled for plays that should have gone for maybe a first down. And like you just can't have that.
The tackling was bad. It was
Yeah.
bad. It was bad.
It was bad.
Um,
And also, by the way, a little word for Todd Bowles. When the game is out of hand, run the ball. You cost me and Ryan a lot of money on
Oh
that.
my God. Oh
We
my God.
we
I
we
I
we,
can't
we put
believe
some
you.
money on. Believe it was their 10th drive. It was the drive that they scored their last touchdown, I think, and
Yes.
it was
Minus 250.
minus 250 for the first play to be a run. I'm like, okay, there's like 8 minutes left. Why would they? They didn't even line up with a running back.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
they
no one in the
lined up.
backfield. Right. I don't know.
I mean, you can't criticize the man because of our terrible gambling decisions, but that one just felt like a lock and it didn't hit. So, Bulls, you're on my banned list.
Relying on Tampa Bay to run the ball is on the banned list. Um,
Yeah,
all right.
I'm just gonna say Tampa Bay is on my banned list.
So we talked about the Rams Super Bowl window. How do we feel about the Eagles Super Bowl window now that I mean, yes, Jason Kelsey is amazing, should be in the Hall of Fame. Center is a big deal, but I mean, they're gonna have the same offensive weapons and the same very good secondary and probably entire defense. But
Oh, let's slow down on very
ooh,
good secondary. That secondary was
Yeah.
pretty
that's
bad all
yes,
year.
the secondary got cooked. Um, but I mean, they are one of the I would say they are one of the in the better half. Um, I mean, when they're playing up to par and they actually know how to tackle, something happened to this team. It's just, like they need to go on like the Aaron Rodgers wilderness retreat all with each other and like make best friend bracelets to figure out what is wrong. Um,
I feel like Jalen Hurts is. I mean, the players have lost trust in him. We saw it earlier in the year. AJ Brown was on him all the time, and people were like, "Oh, AJ Brown's just a diva, whatever." Well, Dallas Goddard last night was on his ass.
He was.
He was chewing him out on the sideline. And Dallas Goddard's a guy that's been in Philly. You know, he's a great blocking tight end. Not, I mean, obviously he's a very talented pass catcher. I always love to get him in fantasy because he just gets a ton of receptions. But I mean, he's a Philly type guy. He's hard nosed. He does the job the right way. And if he's not liking the quarterback play, and your best receiver is not liking the quarterback play, that might cause some team problems.
Yeah. I think the window is still there. I think getting a new coach, if they inevitably do, is gonna maybe delay it a year. They're still a pretty young team in general, and despite losing Kelsey, their O line is still going to be top 3 in the NFL. I don't think Hurts is that great, but he's shown that he can at least bring a team to the Super Bowl. So, you know, I don't think the window's closed. I'd like it to be closed. I don't believe it actually is. And I think how this offseason goes is going to tell a lot about how they're actually going to be in the next few years.
just a disappointing playoffs from the NFC East overall.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You guys want to get into the next week's games?
Oh, I can't wait. Let's go. All right. So first one up, I think I have them in the right order for what order they're going to be played over the weekend. So the first one, well, of course, the Saturday at 4:30 has to involve the Texans. We have the Texans at the Ravens. Baltimore minus 9.5 are our picks.
Baltimore to win. They're my Super Bowl pick. Love CJ Stroud. Love what he's done. Will Anderson is a dog. Losing Noah Brown for the year, that really hurts. Tank Dell is hurt still too. You know, that just doesn't look good for them. And Lamar Jackson has been on an absolute heater. Isaiah Likely, Sun Belt legend, is absolutely cooking for the Ravens, and I looked for both of them to have a pretty big game on Saturday.
Andrews is practicing. He may be back this week.
I feel like you got to ride the hot hand though with Likely. I mean, you have them both out there. Likely's a little quicker. He's a little quicker guy. You could almost play him like a Kyle Pitts type when you actually use him correctly. So I think we also need to see Kyle Pitts in a good scheme. But that's a different.
Yeah, I was gonna say as long as the coach is an Arthur Smith.
I mean, Likely's super good. Obviously, Lamar, he's hands down, in my opinion, the MVP of the National Football League this year. So it's hard to bet against him.
Yeah, I know playoffs aren't supposed to determine that, but I almost feel like how could you even give Dak any vote? I know they already voted on it, but could you imagine if Dak walked down that aisle and won MVP after that playoff showing? He probably was
first quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, but okay, I'm going with Ravens. I don't like them to cover. I think 9.5 is pretty big. The Texans, Stroud's going to put up points, even against that defense. He's done it all. I mean, the Browns have a great defense. He just put up 45 on them. So
I'm sorry, is it not 7.5? Well, when I checked today, it was 7.5. Is it moved that much?
When I checked yesterday, it was 9.5. I can check right now again.
I believe it's 7.5.
Regardless of if it's 7.5 or 9.5, my prediction for this game is 27-21 for the Ravens. I like Ravens, but I like the Texans to cover the spread at either one.
Yes, they did. Both of them went down because even the San Francisco one was at 9.5 as well. So yes, it is Baltimore. So I correct myself. Baltimore minus 7.5 now.
Okay, less confident. I'll still take Houston on the spread. I think that Baltimore wins, and I'll get into more on why I don't think Baltimore is as good as the Bills later. But
okay, Michael, what's your pick?
I am a Texans believer. They were my play of the week last week on the money line at plus odds. I like them to keep rolling. I think the money line is a bit steep. I'm sprinkling the money line and I'm taking +7.5 on the Texans. I like them, and I hate. You know how I feel about resting people. I think it was the same situation with the Browns. I hated it in the MLB. I hate it in the NHL. I hate when guys rest, and I hate betting on players that are cold. And
Mhm.
I don't know. I think it continues. I think the Texans roll, and I like them. That's my play of the week, +7.5 Texans.
So there's going to be a theme with all the picks that I make. I gave you that stat earlier on the win margin this weekend, where in 2022 it was also this bad. The same thing is happening with the divisional rounds, but opposite. Where it's been good wild card weekends, it's been bad divisional. In 2022, when it was 11-point margin, every game either was won in overtime. Remember the 13 seconds, Chiefs Bills, or it was a game-winning field goal. I like the dogs. Other than one, I like the dogs. So I'm going to be taking Texans +7.5. I don't think they lose by more than a touchdown. I like them. I mean, this should be. I also like the over in this game. Yes, the defenses are good, but I mean, we thought the Browns defense was supposed to be good, and yes, 14 of those points came from pick sixes, but I I still like the Texans to. I mean, hopefully get 3 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns on the board.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle Hamilton also. I mean,
Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah, I know he's on
He was
track to
probably
play.
the best defensive player.
Well, I mean, he's going to be playing probably from what I've seen, but I mean, is he going to be healthy like that? I mean, dude, he's the heart and soul of that defense to me. So,
How he fell to that pick, by the way, completely unrelated. I have no idea how he dropped to like the 14th pick. He should have
Yeah.
been top.
All right. Next game, I'll have the correct spread this time. So we have the Packers going to the 49ers, San Francisco -8.5. I'll let the Packers start.
So I saw your notes. Did the Niners just get a cakewalk to the Super Bowl? I feel like that is an absolutely wild question, calling the Packers a cakewalk after what we just saw. Also, while I was scrolling Instagram while listening to you all talk about the Buccaneers and Eagles game, there's a stat. Matt LaFleur has the best win percentage as an underdog coach in the Super Bowl era. I mean, do I think we win against the 49ers? No. But do I think it's a cakewalk for the 49ers? Also, no. I think you said the spread's what? Niners -8.5.
8.5.
I would like to take like Niners -3.5.
Yeah,
I would take no. I mean, let me rephrase that. Packers +3.5. I think we lose by a field goal. I think it's going to be a close game all throughout. Much like I thought the Packers and Cowboys would be a close game, which I was gladly mistaken. But the Niners, I think, are better than the Cowboys, in my opinion. But it'll come down to how Brock Purdy played. The last time he played a good team in the NFL, he threw 4 interceptions against the Ravens and got absolutely destroyed. So
yeah, I'm on the same page as you here. I'd like the Packers to cover. I don't like them to win. Contrary to the Cowboys, the 49ers are not a team that's just going to shut down and play absolutely terrible. You know you're at least going to get like a decent game from them. So, but I mean, I'll be damned if I watch that Packers team again and don't pick them to cover an 8.5 point spread. I like Packers. As I did a final score for last game. I'll do one for this game too. 26-21. 26-21 Niners. Lock it in.
All right.
all right, I'm going to steer away from making a pick in this one because I do think San Francisco is going to roll, but the 8.5 is so high for a team that just waxed the Cowboys. I mean, I think it could go a couple of different ways. I think the Packers could roll it over and keep some of that momentum going, but I also think that they could maybe get confident and get blown out of the water. I could see it going both ways. But what I do like is the under. I really like the 49ers defense, and I mean if the 49ers offense can run their system really well, I think they could put up a lot of points, but my pick for this game is I'm staying away from the spread. I don't really like it, but I'm going to go with the under 50.5.
Yeah,
high.
I do like that under too. Like, I mean, for that to hit, you're looking for at least 3 touchdowns from both teams
Yeah, it
plus
feels like
field
a
goals.
high
Like,
over under. I
Very.
mean, I
yeah.
don't know.
It's fishy though. That's fishy.
But same thing, like I said before, I think all these games will be close. I'm taking the Packers plus 8.5.
One more thing with this. I saw Jordan Love in an interview today, because I guess yesterday they did their Victory Monday interviews. They said something like, the 49ers are the 1 seed, whatever. And Jordan Love was like, we're playing with house money. Nobody
Mhm.
expected us to be here. We're playing with he said, we're playing with fucking house money.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's always a good mentality to have. Like,
I agree.
the lights get too bright for some of these very good teams, the Cowboys. All right. Um, Next game, the first one on Sunday, we have the Buccaneers going to the Lions Den, Detroit, -6.5.
Give me the Lions to roll. They rolled them earlier this year. The Buccaneers inconsistencies. I don't like them to go on the road. I know they went on the road and played really well in Lambeau. Um, the Lions the Lions actually impressed me last week. I was with Peyton and thought they were frauds. I know they only won by one, but their defense stepping up in the second half is what really impressed. When their offense went cold, their defense stepped up and ensured the win. And that was the one thing I didn't think they would get, and they did. Please, for the love of God, give the ball to Jameer Gibbs more. Why do you only have 8 carries? I don't understand. I know Montgomery's good, whatever. He needs the ball more than 8 times. I know, or 12 times because he caught 4. He needs more than 12 touches. Give me the Lions to roll 31-17.
All right. Michael, what do you think?
Sorry, did Peyton give his pick?
No, not yet.
Okay,
I
Peyton
can
can
go.
go first.
I can go. So I picked against the Lions last week. You said the spread was what, Ryan?
6.5.
6.5. Both of these teams have been wildly inconsistent at times this year. The Lions, however, I feel like more of their inconsistencies actually come at home, which is pretty weird. They went to Green Bay and absolutely destroyed the Packers, and then the Packers go to Detroit on Thanksgiving and run them out of their own, stadium. But both of them are super inconsistent. Obviously, the Lions roster is better. I picked against the Lions last week. I'm not going to do it this week. I think the Lions win, but I think the Buccaneers cover the 6.5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, much like last game, I'm going to stay away from the line. Again, I just feel like it's large, but I like the favorite. So just for that reason, I'm going to stay away from it. But I do like the Lions over on their total points for the team. I believe it was at 27.5 last time I checked. I think the Lions can score 4 touchdowns on this Bucks team at home. I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna not put up 4 touchdowns. I mean, I'd be shocked, to be completely honest. So that's gonna be my pick. Lions over 27.5 team
Yeah.
points.
And I am sticking true to what I'm saying, taking the dogs, Bucks plus 6.5. I think the Lions do win this game. I'll be very surprised if we see ourselves with a Buccaneers NFC Championship game. Um, it's just funny to say I saw this before. We're going to either have no hate towards any of these quarterbacks. Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, Jared Goff, or Baker Mayfield will be in the Super Bowl. It's like almost like that. I forget what year it is, but it's like the Brady, Foles, uh, Bortles, and who is the Vikings quarterback?
Keenum.
Case Keenum.
Case Keenum. Like comparing those to the 4 AFC quarterbacks is just wild.
Yeah.
It's just wild.
But you look at the
All
roster
right.
surrounding the NFC teams. I mean, aside from the Ravens, they were talking about it today on SportsCenter about how the Bills and Chiefs have both shifted from like offensive powerhouses to now being more defensive focused teams. I mean, the offensive talent surrounding the quarterbacks in the NFC, I feel like is much better than the remaining talent in the AFC on the not aside from quarterbacks on the offensive side of it.
Perfect segue. So the last game of the weekend, Chiefs going to the Bills. This is Patrick Mahomes' first road playoff game outside of the Super Bowl. This man is 12-3 in the playoffs, and this is his first road game outside of the Super Bowl. Buffalo -3. This is
Yeah,
the
Buddy's gonna hate it in Buffalo this week, man. That crowd on Sunday or on Monday was fun. That team is fun. I like them. And you guys can vouch for this. I'm a Bills hater since that Cowboys game. I thought the flopping was ridiculous. I thought they were going for Dak's head the whole game. Left a sour taste in my mouth. But I'm gonna put my biases aside. This Bills team is for real. I really like them to come out of the AFC and win the Super Bowl this year. I just think Allen, other than the turnovers in the Dolphins game, has limited them. I told you guys on Sunday, he's actually below average in total EPA loss from his interceptions, despite throwing so many of them, because a lot of them are just arm punts on third down. Give me Bills to cover. What's the line like? Was it
3,
$3.5?
3 flat.
Just three. Good, good. Now uh, even better. I can push. I like Bills -3. I honestly would take Bills -10 if that was it. I'm gonna stick with -3.
So I'm gonna agree with Dante. The Bills crowd is crazy. It's rowdy, and to have that kind of crowd on Monday when the game got rescheduled, I mean, some of those people probably had to call off work if it was even possible for them to drive to work because of how much freaking snow
Well,
was.
I think half of them got to just take off because they got paid like $300 for shoveling
Right,
overnight.
right. Yeah, they can call off even if they're not getting PTO. But spread wise, I'm going to add a hook. I want Bills -3.5. That's what I had written down on my sheet before you had even told me the line. I like Bills -3.5. Like I said with the Dolphins and Chiefs game, the weather wasn't good enough for them to really be kicking field goals. So I feel like more than three is pretty feasible. So I like 3.5.
Hmm.
I agree. I like the Bills to take this one. I'm gonna take an opposite approach of you, Peyton. I like to give the Bills the hook, or I'm sorry, I like to give the Chiefs the hook, and I like to take Buffalo -2.5. I think this very easily could be a one field goal game, like a game-winning field goal. And I think that the Bills are just going to overwhelm them. I think in their own barn against the Chiefs, a team that's eliminated them twice now, right? Twice? They eliminated
Yes,
them
twice.
twice? Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
twice.
like, I don't see any way, and I mean, spoiler alert, they're part of my mortal lock section this week, but um, without calling it a mortal lock, I like the points, but I do like getting that hook um, on the in the event that they do win by a field goal. So
Yeah.
Ryan,
Um,
before you go, I
okay.
want to say, as people noted on, as I noted on the first podcast, I really don't like Josh Allen. I think he does turn it over too much, even after hearing the information that Dante says. But if he finally gets over the hump, beats Mahomes in the playoffs, his playoff losses are to Mahomes and Burrow, obviously two stellar quarterbacks. But if he gets over the hump, beats Mahomes, and then beats the Ravens, in my opinion, he's definitely submitted himself, much higher in my mind. Top two or top three in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I like obviously Bills -3. I love the line. Every year I walk into this game feeling worried, and I don't feel worried this time. It's in our house. Um, the amount of stats that I've looked at this is unbelievable. So let me just read a few off. In that Chiefs game, there was 280 yards between Pacheco, Rashee Rice, and Travis Kelce. Yes, those three players are good, but do you trust any other player on that Chiefs team to catch the ball? I actually hate them to touch the ball.
At this point, I don't even think Travis Kelce is going to catch the ball every time he touches it.
Maybe Noah Gray. Noah Gray's a reliable one catch for 7 yards guy, but
Marcus Valdez-Scantling is reliable for at least one drop on a touchdown pass
like
every game.
Scary
we
stuff.
have to talk about like this team used to be Allen to Diggs and maybe Gabe Davis shows up. But now you have two tight ends that can get in the middle, get those yards. You have Diggs on the outside. You're going to have Davis back. And now we have three wide receiver threes. Shakir, Trent Sherfield, and Hardy, who have all shown that they can move probably as good as um Mister drops it. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. It's
Darius
blank.
Tony.
Darius Tony, who drops it. They are showing the same footwork as him for the same reason that the Chiefs got him. And then now we have James Cook versus Isaiah Pacheco. Who are they very that different? Like this is
Yeah,
an unbelievable matchup. Um,
I
but I
I love I love what Khalil Shakir has been doing lately, and I think he deserves more touches. Even that touchdown last game was incredible. That was the highlight of the
yeah.
weekend, honestly, in my opinion. That was I love their position group now that I didn't used to. Just kind of like what you were saying. That's why I'm so high on them now. A lot of guys have stepped up and are finally, they're finally living up to that. What's expected out of them.
And then also this is just a side comment because I don't think it will really matter. We waived Leonard Fournette today. I'm not sure why, or even why we picked him up then for that reason. I just think that was just an interesting thing that I saw today. He hasn't. I think he touched the ball like 3 times. Um, but just an interesting signing and letting go so quickly.
He was worth a shot.
Yeah, playoff Lenny. What can he do wrong? Um,
You guys want to go over our band list? Because I have a team for mine.
Yeah, we'll make our way down to the band list and Mortal Lock, and then we might also have a little treat, but that might be on TikTok with the bread rankings.
all right. All right,
Oh,
Michael,
he spoiled it now.
you're eager for your mortal or your ban list, so have at it.
Well, let me do Mortal Locks first
Okay.
because I mean, Bill's money line, I think, is my Mortal Lock this week. I'm going to learn from what I did last week and take the spread for the Lions on my Mortal Lock. Uh, I think it's a game that they could realistically win by 1, and for that reason, I like the Bills against the Chiefs. Bad blood between these teams in Buffalo for the first time. I think the energy is going to be electric. I think the Bills are going to have just going to play angry, and I think that they're going to win. I think they're going to come out on top, even if it's a scrappy, long, hard fought out game. I like the Bills money line as my mortal lock for this week.
I mean, I can
All right.
go. My mortal lock is tonight. It's actually not the NFL. I'm going with the NBA. The Thunder are on a back-to-back in LA, so they're playing in Crypto.com Arena again. I'm taking Thunder money line versus the Clippers tonight. The Clippers are -5.5. I just looked. It might have went down because I just got a message on my phone that Zubac is out at least 4 weeks for the Clippers. So that hurts. They lost a tough game to the Lakers last night, which obviously I was happy about. But my mortal lock for this week is Thunder money line tonight versus the Clippers.
Sadly, my mortal lock is going to match Michael. I can't be any more excited for this game. I'm just going to take this. I'm going to take the spread at -2.5 because that's what I originally saw and that's what I fell in love with. So I still am not going to shy away from Bills -3, but for a mortal lock, I am doing Bills -2.5. We will be in the AFC Championship.
All right, my mortal lock is I like Jahmyr Gibbs over 3.5 receptions. I think they're going to keep using him out of the backfield. The Buccaneers all year. Now I don't have I don't have anything to fact check this, but I feel like they allow a lot of receptions out of the backfield. I saw Gainwell a couple times last game, but the Eagles don't really throw to their running backs in general. Um, he catches balls, catches a lot of them. He got 4 last game, and I still felt like he was underutilized. It's -105 on Hard Rock too, which is pretty nice. Yeah, a little bit more than the 110. I don't really have much behind it. It's honestly more of a gut thing. My moral lock is based on my gut, and I'm going Gibbs to have 4 or more catches. I honestly think he ends up with 6.
Not a bad one. You're Njoku. I mean, that was probably the freest play of the week.
Yeah, that one just felt free.
No, don't say you're packed.
All right. Let's move on to the band list. I already stated mine. And it's gonna be in the same game. Picking Buccaneers props. That's my ban list. Buccaneer props, because you never know what is going through Todd Bowles' mind. You don't know, and I should have listened to you. You were a Shad White fantasy owner all year, and you'd always bitch about how they would throw it on the 1 yard line, and they wouldn't run it on first down, but they'd run it on second. And you're just like, you don't know what they're gonna do. It's so dumb, like the thought process that goes into it. So any Buccaneers bet that's not like a line
All right,
is
Buccaneer props.
yeah.
All right.
I'll go. So obviously you all listening to the podcast don't know this yet, but I came up with a genius play for college basketball, to where you take every double-digit favorite to win, you just parlay their money lines every time, and it's usually free. And I almost did it yesterday, and thank God I didn't, because Stetson basketball sold it at home to Chicago State, who, by the way, has won 9 straight road games now. They're very impressive. But Stetson basketball, just for that, I had no balls and cashed out before the game started, which thankfully I did. I love you, Donnie Jones. You were the first Marshall basketball coach that I fell in love with back in the day. But I will never bet on Stetson basketball.
So I did
Another
the same thing. I
oh,
cashed out when they were losing at half for like some of it back, and then they brought it back. I was like, no way, because also Boston College was losing at the same time to Notre Dame, and I was like, no way, both these teams are going to come back. I think Boston College ended up winning, but I mean, I did it again tonight though. I did another 9, so we'll see what happens.
It's usually so free. It's usually so free.
yeah. Well, another
My
side note on Chicago State, by the way, one of those road wins was at Northwestern. So it's not like they're beating up these cupcake teams. They're actually pretty legit. But in saying that, probably shouldn't lose to them.
The streak was a lot longer too, and then they lost at Wisconsin earlier in the season. So
Interesting.
All right, I'm actually going to go back for a second. I'm going to change my mortal lock just so that me and Michael don't have the same one. I'm switching my mortal lock back to Jazz money line against the Warriors. It's a few days away, so I don't know what the line's going to be, but the Jazz are hot and the Warriors suck. So that is tomorrow night. They currently have it at wow, they currently have it at Utah -5.5. Give me Utah -5.5. It's also a home game. So that'll be my mortal lock. My banned list, although I did not bet on him, I will never bet on this man ever. I love the Kings, but I hate Malik Monk and the way that he plays basketball in the fourth quarter. He almost ruined 2 for me. He ended up ruining 1. By both just chucking up threes, not giving the ball to the best 2 players on the team, either De'Aaron Fox, who I needed to get PRA, or Sabonis. And then I think he probably went 0 for 3, maybe 1 for 4, shooting 3 in the fourth quarter, and then went 0 for 2 on his free throws to basically seal the game in the fourth quarter, in which Dame hit a pretty deep 3 to win. So Malik
overtime.
Monk was never
Overtime.
going to bet on you before. We'll never bet on you again.
Banned.
I'm personally a big fan of Malik Monk. I love watching him play basketball.
I like his game, but I can see why you.
Oh,
I know
yes.
your love affair with the
If
Kings.
and Dante, this is just for you. If Kevin Huerter wasn't hurt,
Stop
that game.
calling him Puerto.
Kevin Huerter.
Kevin Huerter.
All right.
Michael. All right, banned list for Michael.
Banned list. Just a team in general. Whether I like them, whether I don't like them, I will not be betting on the Capitals anymore. 2 straight L's on the Caps. It cannot figure this team out. I don't think they're that good, but when their line looks good, they play like they're not good. Like they play like how they probably should play, and then I play them, and then their goalie likes to stand on his head and just absolutely fuck the Rangers out of a couple points. And so yeah, ban list Capitals. Washed ass team. Never again.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, we could talk about that on the next one when we get into more than football. But just a little sneak peek for some hockey notes I did. They're one of only 3 teams to not have 100 goals this year, and the other 2 suck.
Yeah.
They're
Oh, I
exactly.
can't
They're
figure them. I can't
exactly.
figure them out. I can't figure them out. So for
Is
that
it
reason,
is it the
I'm out.
Blackhawks and the Sharks?
Yes.
Okay, good. I took their over today. Over 5.5.
Oh, perfect.
All right.
So I think that's it for us here. Make sure, like Peyton said, we're going to be recording a few videos for our TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. So definitely follow us all there. It's all the DGen Sports. And thanks for tuning in once again. We'll probably talk about football on the next one. Maybe have a short one talking about some other sports that we didn't get to talk about in this one.
Yeah. Yeah, another great podcast. Peyton, do the thing, say it, send us out.
Appreciate you all for listening. Go Pack, go.
No, you're supposed to say
Hopefully,
keep it twisted.
yeah. Hopefully one of us
And keep
comes
it
out.
twisted.
Hopefully not all of us are eliminated next
You're
podcast.
coming out, Ryan?
All right. See you next week.